10 signs you're in a cult. Ooh.
Don't worry, I'm not in the cult anymore.
What's up, peeps?
Logan Trudell here, and in this video I'm going to tell you all about my experience being in a cult and how I got out.
Now, what you have to understand is many things in society are culty. Take sports teams, for instance. People will do vicious things to each other to protect the tribe. But the new age definition of a cult is a small, new religious group that isn't a part of an organized religion. But I like to think of cults as communities where people actually don't get better. They are manipulated to stay, and that community forces the person to subscribe to all the ideologies instead of coming up with their own. The craziest thing about cults is most people don't even know when they're in one. You could see this in a BuzzFeed video. They talked to 5 people who were in a previous cult, and many of them had no idea that they were even in one.
I didn't know I was in one when I was in one.
It is a very weird situation to be in because nobody would ever say,
Hey, I want to join a cult.
most people are just looking for answers in how to live a better life. And sometimes if you're vulnerable, if you're in a position where you're seeking answers, this is what can make you susceptible to joining a cult. And this happened to me when I started drinking ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a substance known for its healing capabilities. It's very popular in South America, and it continues to get popularized on podcast episodes like Joe Rogan. Many people have taken ayahuasca and had profound experiences that completely changed their lives. When I started taking it, this was the case. But it took me a while to realize that
The place I kept going to, the place where I just kept pouring my heart, my soul, and my money into was a cult.
after over 17 ceremonies at this place, a lot of pain, and the realization that what I was doing was not really helping me in my life, after realizing how much money I spent, it was like Neo unplugging from the Matrix. It was
A shock. How could I have been in a cult? How could I have allowed myself to become this person?
But as many people in cults will tell you,
You don't know you're in a cult until you're out.
so in this video, I'm going to give you my knowledge and my experience about what cults are so you can avoid them in the future. Unless you want to join them, then I guess this is an educational video for you. So let's go ahead and dive in. The first point I want to get across is there are levels to cults. Now, if you've seen any scary movie, any culty movie like The Wicker Man or Midsummer, pretty scary shit, right? Sacrificing bodies, killing people, living on a commune.
Now this is the highest level, I would assume.
And Jim Jones, drinking the Kool-Aid, that's the highest level where you become
Martyrs.
Now, there are levels to this,
I'm not going to get into all the levels.
but the cult that I was a part of, I didn't live there. I would go there every 2 weeks, depending on what was going on in my life. But the key thing that makes these cults, and not just a place you're going to hang out, is the manipulation tactics that are used there. Over time, it becomes a scenario where it's a win-lose for the cult member. The cult member is putting in all this time and energy, and the cult leader is winning more and taking more from this person.
So that's something to bear in mind. Let's go ahead and dive into the 10 signs.
Number 1, no individuality. You see this in many cults, in ayahuasca cults.
The one that I was in,
Everyone would be wearing white, everyone would be singing the same songs, everyone would be buying ponchos, everyone would be engaging in the same activities. And what ends up happening is you become really tight with these people, and you start to think the same things, you believe the same things, you only talk about the things involved in the cult.
a lot of the friends I had at the time, all we were talking about was ayahuasca and spirituality and all this stuff. Everything else didn't matter anymore.
And when you start to lose your individuality, that's a clear sign that something is up. A good question to ask yourself if you get into a new group, you think it's a little weird, a little culty, is,
Am I paving a lane for myself, or am I becoming like everyone else in this group?
Number 2, very common, is a charismatic leader. Oftentimes this person will be a narcissist, someone who's very charming, very good at negotiating, very good at making you feel comfortable. at calming any tension that you have, any anxiety. But these people are very, very manipulative. You have to know that a narcissistic person,
they have very fragile egos.
so they like to have people around them all the time to make them feel better about themselves. These kinds of people are very, very, very good at getting their way. They will be able to sweet talk you into doing what they want you to do, and they'll make you think that it was a good decision on your part. An example of this was the leader at the place I was going to. He talked me up. I had some deodorant that I was selling, handmade, and he pretty much talked me up and said it was great, and then he convinced me to he would start selling it, he would buy it off of me. And when I think back on the negotiation, he smooth talked me really quickly. He said things like,
oh yeah, we're friends, you can trust me, there's no business without trust, all these things. And then when I go back to the price that we agreed upon, it was like, holy crap, you really skimped me. If we were friends, I'm the person making the product, I should be making more than you. He was making more than me when he was selling it.
And that's bad business on my part. But when you have a really smooth salesman that can sweet talk you and tell you all these things, and I just wanted to help,
it was very easy for me to be manipulated.
So these are things to look out for. Number 3, gaslighting. This is one of the most prominent tools used by master manipulators,
and especially in cults.
Gaslighting is the act of making somebody feel like something didn't happen, or to make them question their own reality. This was shown at this place many, many times. I would see new people coming in because it's a business. They're running retreats for 4 days, and many people would come in and they would have like a really tough experience and stuff. And the shaman and his wife would basically tell these people,
oh yeah, that's not what it really means. That's not what really happened.
The very, very scary thing about cults related to psychedelic use, and I know there's another cult with like mindfulness and meditation. There are many cults like that. When you start to change the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, it can be very dangerous, especially with hallucinogenics, because the leader pretty much has control. The shaman is like the doctor. They're the person that you look up to who has spent years of their life studying this stuff, if they're not a charlatan. And so you look up to them, and
they have the power to tell you like, oh yeah, that's not really what happened. You weren't navigating the medicine very well. Oh, you're on ayahuasca, like you just had a vision.
So there were several scenarios where
something happened and they told me, oh yeah, that didn't happen.
One example was a shaman. He came up to me. I have never seen this before, never even heard of it. I felt really sick, really terrible, the most sick I've ever felt on the medicine before. And he comes up to me with a flashlight and just starts staring at me, and he's like,
you're sick. Oh, you're so sick. You're terrible. And like, I was trying to ask for help and no one would help me.
And this is a tool used to make you feel like you're strange, wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, all of these things. And it's a tool to manipulate people to keep healing. Like,
you're really sick. You need to heal more. You're letting out all this crap. Take some more ayahuasca.
These are very, very manipulative tactics, and you really have to watch out for gaslighting.
If somebody starts to make you question your own judgment, that's usually gaslighting.
A person who wants the best for you is going to empathize with your situation. They're not going to tell you that it didn't happen.
They're going to say, oh wow, that really sucks. Let me try and help you.
Number 4, strange rules. Cult leaders will have really weird rules. They will have things that you are not allowed to do. It's a lot of control. What I noticed when I first started going to this place was that the shaman, he controlled the Wi-Fi router all the time. He would turn it off and say that
people are going to get sick because of the emission from the Wi-Fi.
He would turn it off all the time, so people don't really have access to, if you didn't have data, you don't have access to message people and stuff. He used to put this substance called MMS in the water. It's called magical miracle solution or something like that. It's called chlorine dioxide. And he used to talk about how there's all these studies that have been buried by the pharmaceutical industry because they don't want anyone to know.
And it's basically like liquid bleach.
And there's a lot of articles all over the web about how it's not good for you. He would put this in everyone's water. They would make you drink it while you're there. They'd say that it's the best thing. It cures cancer. It's even better than the ayahuasca. And it kind of reminded me of Jim Jones with the Kool-Aid. It's like, oh yeah, they can convince someone to go completely against what society normally does. Number 5, overly loyal followers. This is one of the best things for a cult and a cult leader, is to have followers that are going to go out of their way to talk up your business, if it's a business, to recruit new members, to defend you if you ever do anything wrong. The crazy thing that I saw was when I left, because I went there with people that were close to me, and
They basically showed me that this place was no good. And they basically told me it was a cult.
I couldn't see it at the time. It's really hard to believe once you've invested all this time and energy. But the crazy thing to me was the friend that I was really good friends with and who invited me to this place. We were really close. And after this happened, we had a phone conversation, and he asked me what went down, and I was very skeptical to tell him anything because I knew how close he was with the shaman.
And mind you, me and this guy, we went and traveled together. We did a bunch of things together.
He tells me that the shaman, whatever happened, that's between me and him, and that he holds him in the highest integrity, and that he's actually his best friend.
So I ended the conversation there because I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere.
And I realized then that is exactly what the shaman wants. Exactly what a cult leader wants is an overly loyal follower, someone who will cut off everyone if they go against the cult.
And it fit that narrative. And when I had family members and friends coming in trying to help me see what was going on, they were trying to push them away from me.
And that brings me to point number 6, separation from the ones that are close to you. On the last retreat, I actually had my mom come with me, and my girlfriend ended up coming, and she didn't want to go for a long time, and she finally comes, and they were the ones that helped me realize what was really going on. And while I was there, my mom was not enjoying herself. I wasn't really either. So the energy was really weird. All of this weird stuff was going on.
And the shaman would tell me to stop worrying about your mom. Your mom is on her own healing journey. She came here for a reason. She has to deal with this stuff on her own.
So he was pretty much trying to convince me to not even console my mom, to not help her, to not worry about her. That is a clear sign of masterful manipulation. Cults operate by separating the family unit. They want to pull you apart from your friends and family, because if your friends and family don't come in, then they are against the cult. So if you've dipped your foot in the water and your family members haven't, or friends haven't, you're that much closer to being completely in the cult. So they're going to try and separate those people from you that might give you a different perspective. Number 7, there's going to be a lot of labeling you as a victim. I saw this with certain people that would come to the house for the ceremonies. If they felt too sick, if they felt they couldn't keep going, they would be pretty much labeled as victims. The shaman and his wife would sit the person down, and they'd talk for 30 minutes to an hour, and they would end up going to people after that conversation and basically
talking crap to all of the members of the cult or anyone who was just there for the weekend, and basically saying oh, this person doesn't want to heal. This person doesn't want to get better.
Completely denying any of their feelings. And the really good thing, if you're a cult leader, about labeling people as a victim is you get away with everything. If other people believe that person's just a victim, anything that you've done wrong doesn't matter, because that person is a victim. They're just being a baby. They don't want to heal. They don't want to get better.
They would use this all the time to make people who wanted to leave feel terrible.
Instead of nurturing them and allowing them to make their own decisions, it was a lot of pressure. So much pressure to make you feel bad if you weren't doing it. Number 8, conspiracy theories. When I first met this dude,
I believe in a lot of conspiracy theories, so that's probably why we hit it off. But
the amount of time this guy would spend talking about conspiracies, about Bill Gates, about vaccinations. It was like just a lot of hate, and it's kind of shocking that I
still went to that place. I was in a pretty desperate time in my life dealing with skin issues.
But cult leaders will really push an agenda that's completely different from society. So lots of conspiracy theories, and they use this to manipulate the way you see the world. Because if the world's a really bad place, and the place that you keep going to, their place, is really good and really pure, they tell you all these things about values and all of these good things within the community, then the outside world has to be really bad. And so conspiracy theories are great for these people, because if you choose to believe them, that's another thing in the world that's bad, and it brings you closer to the cult. This leads right into number 9. Society is wrong and we are right. Cults are really good at painting a picture that the world is a terrible place. In a lot of these ayahuasca communities, they will tell you that you have to do the healing for the world.
It's a pretty big burden to bear.
That you have to break your ancestral lineage, and I do believe in that, but the biggest issue with that is they're trying to tell you that all of society is terrible. And it's a technique to force you further down into their community, because you can only trust people within that community. You can only trust the people that have done these rituals and ceremonies with you.
And when I say rituals and ceremonies, don't think that we're cutting up chickens and stuff. This is like you drink a substance, you lay down for like 6 hours.
But there's a lot of manipulation that goes on in order to keep people within this system. So they keep taking money from you. The guy I described earlier, he's still in that cult. I'm pretty sure he's bought a piece of land there, and he is going to marry one of the girls who's been living there. And I'm sure he's not paying for the ayahuasca anymore, but he paid probably $10,000 or something like that over the course of a year. So it's a big investment, and the cult leader just profits off of it. And this is ultimately shown by making people believe that anyone who opposes this community is a victim, doesn't know what they're talking about, doesn't want to heal. Number 10, with all of these manipulative tactics, the biggest issue with leaving a cult is the guilt that you're gonna feel wanting to leave. I felt this.
We ended up leaving the place at 5 a.m. We had to call a taxi. We had to get the hell out of there because some weird shit was going on. You can watch that story on another video.
But there's a tremendous amount of guilt you will feel, because these people have done a very good job at making you feel like
you need them. They've done so much for you. You'd be nothing without them.
Even fearing for your own safety if you were to go tell anyone about a cult, about how the place is bad, because it could ruin their business. So things like that. There's a lot of fear pushed to people who are trying to leave. I saw this at this place. They had taken in a couple of people who needed help, and this makes them look really good in the eyes of the public. And they basically allowed them to live on the land and drink ayahuasca, and these people were maids. They had to cook for them and clean for them. And the friend I described earlier, one day he told me that one of the maids would always try and run away, but she would always come back.
And those words really struck a chord with me. This was the weekend that
I left the cult. Run away.
Why would you use the word run away? What would you need to be running from if this is a place that allows people to be built up and to become better?
So the biggest thing with cults is they're going to try and do everything to control you and to keep you within them. So if you are in a situation where you're in a community where you feel like you're losing your individuality and you're not becoming better, different, having your own path instead of the same path that everyone's going down, then chances are you're in a cult. And
you have to get out.
Now, many people would think things like Tony Robbins or other gurus are cults. And I think
cults are generally bad, in my opinion.
There are good cults where they help raise you up and get you to a place where you get to make your own impact on the world. If you were in a community of, let's say it was a men's group or a women's group, and you say,
I'm gonna go fly to Australia to do a new business endeavor.
If they're all giving you pats on the back and giving you support, then that's not a bad place to be. But in a cult, they would try and force you to stay and try and find ways to convince you that you are leaving them and make you feel guilty. So if you found this video
and you've been in a cult, or you're in a cult,
or you think you could be susceptible to being in one, I will tell you this, it's usually vulnerable people who want to try new things and maybe have trauma and stuff. If you can work on these things and understand your own flaws and maybe where you allow people to take advantage of you, then heal these wounds and you can allow yourself to
not be susceptible to going into a cult or staying in one.
So if you want to continue this conversation, go ahead and post a comment below.
Have you ever been in a cult? Have you ever heard of stuff like this?
And if you have some more vulnerable stuff to share, go ahead and send me a message at It's Logan Trudell on Instagram, and we can talk about anything you're going through regarding this stuff. I think it's really important. This is why I'm making this video, is because
I think more people need to know about manipulation tactics that people with more dark intentions will use.
And if you can understand that, you can navigate life better. And although this situation may sound pretty crazy, I know I haven't explained it completely on this video, it's helped me a lot become a better, stronger person and not be manipulated easily. So if you liked this video, go ahead and check out this video over here about ayahuasca and my experience. Thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to y'all later. Ciao.